One of the most majestic destinations in all of North America is Banff, Canada. Welcome to RV Out West. I'm your host, Brooks. My Family of Four's base camp is located in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, and our RV adventures radiate out from there. Please grab a mug of coffee and join us as we discuss RVing around the American West. From sweet camping spots, gear and equipment, to tips and tricks, we've got you covered. We are RV Out West. Back in the 90s, my grandparents, Bobby and Papa, had visited Banff, and the stories that they shared about how beautiful it was, it has stuck with me ever since. You see, my grandparents had lived all over the world, from Peru, Colombia, Egypt, England, to name a few. Plus, they were very seasoned travelers, and they've seen so much of this planet. Hearing them light up as they spoke about Banff is the reason that the Canadian Rockies garnered a spot on my bucket list. This past summer, our family, with our travel trailer in tow, made the 12-hour drive to Banff. We rolled into camp at night, got everything set up, and then we woke up to stunning views of jagged, snow-capped peaks right from our campsite. Our first full day was filled with figuring out the local transit system, Rome. We headed into the town of Banff to chase down poutine, a pint, and to get a lay of the land, as Banff was the springboard to many of our adventures. According to Wikipedia, Banff was first settled in the 1880s after the Transcontinental Railway was built through the Bow Valley. In 1883, 3 Canadian Pacific Railway workers stumbled upon a series of natural hot springs on the side of Sulphur Mountain. Then, in 1885, Canada established a federal reserve around the Cave and Basin Hot Springs and began promoting the area as an international resort and spa as a way to support the new railway. In 1887, the reserve area was increased and named Rocky Mountain Park. This was the beginning of Canada's national park system. The area was named Banff in 1884 by George Stephen, president of the Canadian Pacific Railway, recalling his birthplace near Banff, Scotland. The town of Banff was the first municipality to incorporate within the Canadian National Park. When you visit Banff, one of the most important places to visit is the Banff Visitor Center in downtown Banff. This is a great resource where you can chat with a park ranger to get the lay of the land, find hikes, but also chat with them about the various transit options that are available, as they will best help you figure out how it works and what may work best for you. But hang tight, we will dive into transit later in this episode. The town of Banff reminds me of any mountain town. The architecture isn't gimmicky like you'd see in, say, Leavenworth, Washington, but it definitely has the European Alps vibes. There are plenty of souvenir shops slinging just about the same t-shirts and hoodies, and the restaurants range from pubs to something fancy. For the life of me, I'm trying to remember the name of the restaurant that we went to in town, but I don't remember it. But what I can tell you is that it's a sports bar with a hockey-centric memorabilia. Shocker, I know. But it was kid-friendly, above street level with a deck that had great views. We had some great Canadian beers and ciders with our lunch, and of course, I chased down poutine. I had to get my fix. This was about, though, all the time that we actually spent in the town of Banff. We only spent about a little more than half a day. It was our first day, and we wanted to get our bearings for the rest of our trip. I will add that the IGA grocery store for provisioning in town is a good stop. While this trip was a bucket list destination for us, we had so many wonderful highlights that I find it hard to even distill down all that we saw and did. One of our excursions was to the Lake Louise Ski Resort and Summer Gondola. The Lake Louise Ski Resort is one of the key jumping off points to catch shuttles to Lake Louise and Moraine Lake. We rode the gondola up the mountain and had a wonderful farm-to-table lunch at the White Horn Bistro, which is a short 10-minute walk from the top of the gondola. Our meal was great, and the views were spectacular. As we wrapped up our meal, though, our server came over to us and shared that an incoming lightning storm was about 15 minutes out and that the gondola had ceased operations until the storm passed, and then they ushered us inside to wait out the storm. We hunkered down with other visitors and guests. It was about a 30 to 45-minute wait, and we did almost miss our shuttle to Lake Louise. But ultimately, the storm passed, we were able to ride the gondola down, and we did make our shuttle with Parks Canada to Lake Louise. Lake Louise is just as stunning in person than in all the photos you have ever seen on the internet. It will take your breath away. With the jagged peaks and the Caribbean turquoise blue water, visiting the lake is just as touristy as seeing Old Faithful blow in Yellowstone National Park. But just like Old Faithful, it is totally worth seeing for yourself. We did the touristy thing. We snapped the family photos of us on the edge of the lake. There's a path that you can walk along the waterfront, and you can escape a bit away from the crowds while also changing your perspective on this beautiful lake. After we explored Lake Louise, we headed over to the Banff Hot Springs. This is unlike the hot springs that you would find in the Olympic National Park. These hot springs really are a mineral pool that you can easily soak in, and it doesn't smell like sulfur. It can be pretty busy with people. Don't be discouraged, and this should be a place that you visit. The views from the pool are pretty and is basically an oversized hot tub without the chlorine. We had a great time sitting and standing in the pool, talking about our day, what maybe our future plans were, talking about hikes and other things we wanted to do. And we just enjoyed taking in the time to be together, unplugged. It was awesome. The following day, we had a private shuttle booked with Moraine Lake Bus Company. It was a 9 a.m. shuttle, and with the drive from where we camped to the Lake Louise Ski Resort, we just missed our 9 a.m. shuttle. We spoke with a Moraine Lake bus employee who told us that the next availability they had for us was at noon. We were disappointed, as this was to be the day that we did one of the famous Lake Louise tea house hikes. But getting to the trailhead by noon was going to throw a kink into our hiking plans. We opted to stay put at the ski resort and then head back over to the Moraine Lake Bus Company pickup location. We arrived 20 minutes early, and then we were told by a different employee that there was no room on the noon shuttle, and that since we missed our 9 a.m. shuttle, they did not have to guarantee us a spot, and they would not refund us our money. It was about $200 for our family of four to take this 5-minute shuttle across the way from the ski resort over to Lake Louise. We then drove to their office and spoke with someone there. After some back and forth, they said they could get us on a 3 p.m. shuttle, but that we would have to be on the 5 or 5:30 shuttle coming back. All dashes of hope left, as we knew that we would not be able to complete the tea house hike. So we walked away from their shuttle and our money, disappointed to say the least, and the fact that they were pretty unwilling to even uphold what their employee initially told us has left us with a pretty bad taste in our mouth for the Moraine Lake Bus Company. If you go, I would recommend that you use either Parks Canada shuttles or the Rome Transit, which is the public transportation option. While we were disappointed with the Moraine Lake Bus Company, one lesson learned is to stay flexible and learn to be more like water. Because we missed out on the tea house hike, we ended up getting a piece of advice from a local who shared with us that the hike out to Takakawa Falls is worth it, and they were right. Takakawa Falls initially follows a paved path out to a footbridge. Once you cross the footbridge, the path is a graded gravel trail out to the base of the waterfall. The sounds of rushing water and the change in temperature lets you know that you are getting close. This is an exceptional waterfall that is created from a glacier high above, and then the moving water from underneath the glacier as it reaches the edge of a mountaintop creates the waterfall. We enjoyed the hike out to the waterfall, and our spirits returned, as it was a great way to end a very disappointing beginning to a day. We were grateful that we were able to see this waterfall, even though it was never on our radar or in any of our plans for hiking. Our original plans included us moving campgrounds on the back half of our trip to go to the town of Jasper. as the town is the springboard to the north end of the Banff National Park. Unfortunately, the 2 weeks leading up to our trip, the community of Jasper was ravaged by a devastating wildfire that, last I heard, had destroyed over 30% of the town. The wildfire forced us to pivot our plans as the Icefield Parkway was closed going north from the Athabasca Glacier. RVers are a resourceful community, and we lucked out in finding 2 campsites for us and the other family traveling with us in the mountain town of Revelstoke, British Columbia, which I will talk about in a separate special destination episode in the near future. What we were able to do is make the 3-hour drive one way from our campground in Banff to the Athabasca Glacier. What was going to be originally a half-day excursion for us turned into a full day, but we are so glad that we didn't walk away from these plans. The drive along the Icefield Parkway has now become my favorite stretch of road in North America. For the last 20 years, my number one stretch of road has been Highway 395 from Death Valley National Park up to Lake Tahoe along the eastern spine of the Sierra Mountains. The Icefield Parkway is amazing. Everywhere you look, the views are breathtaking, and the road is so much fun to drive. According to Wikipedia, the Athabasca Glacier is one of the 6 principal toes of the Columbia Icefield, located in the Canadian Rockies. The glacier currently loses a depth at a rate of about 5 meters, 16 feet, per year, and has receded more than 1.5 kilometers, just under 1 mile, and lost over half of its volume in the past 125 years. You can look at the geology and the moraines to see just how massive the Athabasca Glacier was over a century ago. It's a pretty wild sight to see and to just comprehend how large this glacier icefield once was. We drove the Icefield Parkway to go to the Athabasca Glacier. In our preparation and planning, we had made reservations to head out onto the glacier via the Columbia Icefield Glacier Tour Company, operated by Pursuit. This was about a $200 experience for our family of 4, and our tour included a ride out onto the glacier via these huge red and white overland buses that have special ice tires on them. There's something like only 20 of them in the world, and 18 of these buses are here for exploring the Athabasca Glacier, and the other 2 are down in Antarctica. Be sure to bring an empty water bottle so you can taste that sweet, fresh glacial water. I promise you won't get sick. After our tour ended, they bussed us up to the Skywalk, which is a glass floor sky bridge that you can walk out on and get some pretty cool views of the Columbia Icefields. Again, this might be a touristy thing to do, and some may not like to do these types of adventures, but I will tell you that for us and our family, it was a super cool experience, and we were able to get right up and close. Overall, we had about 4 days to explore the greater Banff area. The drive from where we live is about 9 hours by car, but in an RV, it took us closer to 12. We left after work on a Friday and crossed the border around 7:30 in the evening. The border crossing was pretty straightforward. As I approached the border agent, I rolled down my window and the driver's rear window, turned on the interior lights, and had our passports ready to hand to the border agent. They asked us the standard crossing questions, and then we were through. Our destination that first night was with a harvest host in Merritt, British Columbia. The next day, we got a little later than planned start to our day, and so we ultimately didn't end up arriving at our campsite in Banff until 10:30 at night. We stayed at the Tunnel Mountain Trailer Court, and we had full hookups. Most of the sites here are pull-throughs, and come Sunday morning, I poured myself a cup of coffee and walked the campground for a bit, taking in the surrounding beauty and listening to the morning birds sing their songs. Tunnel Mountain Trailer Court is just outside of downtown Banff and is one of the nicest national park operated campgrounds I have ever stayed at. This is the campground to stay at when you find yourself in Banff, especially if you want full hookups. But that also means that you need to be ready for the reservation game. The Canadian park system operates a little bit differently than our state parks do. They are not on a rolling calendar. The entire country opens up around the third week of January for reservations. That means that I was on my computer at 7 in the morning, and I was lucky as I was number 1,500 in the queue. Our friends that we were camping with were like 46,000 in the queue. It took them over 45 minutes to just get past the queue and be able to book their campsite. This meant that we were not able to buddy camp and have side-by-side sites. We did get lucky and were a pretty short walk between our two campsites, but the only thing I can think of is that whoever has the shorter wait in the queue should maybe book both the sites. But I didn't do any research to know if you can book two sites under two different names. So if this is something you're wanting to do, you may want to investigate this a bit more, as this is just merely an after-the-fact thought that I have had. The Canadian Rockies and the town of Banff honestly should be on everyone's list of places to see and RV in North America. We barely scratched the surface on our short visit, and the 5 days that we were there went pretty quickly. We will be going back, and I want to go back sooner than later. I cannot even begin to express just how amazing, stunning, majestic, beautiful, insert any other adjective here to describe it to you. Even if you do a Google search or watch any of the videos on YouTube, you will see just why you need to see it for yourself. Don't wait the almost 30 years it took me to get there, just based on what my grandparents shared with me back when I was in my late teens, early 20s. A trip like this will require a fair amount of pre-trip planning. Not that you can't wing it, but I'd recommend that you at least secure your campground and shuttle passes, as they really are the key to exploration of this very busy national park. You must go chase waterfalls, glaciers, hot springs, and memories in Banff. I'd like to do an Ask Me Anything, and I have already received a question via text regarding black tanks from a listener. Thank you for sending that in. Please either text the show with a question or head over to my website and click on the link question. You can record yourself asking me a question, and you just may end up on the show. Please visit www.rvoutwest.com and click on the link question. Or you can just click on the link in the description right there in your podcast app with this episode and ask me anything. Thank you again for listening to RV Out West. I sincerely appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, will you kindly give RV Out West a follow on Facebook and Instagram and join in on the conversations? And go ahead and tell your friends and family about this show too. In next week's pit stop, I'm going to share some tips and tricks that I use when hitting the road for a multi-day trip. How to save some time and to keep cash in your pocket, all the while enjoying your week-long or greater RV trip. Thanks so much for listening to RV Out West. Join us again next week. Please like and subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you choose to get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. I sure would appreciate it if you left a rating or a review of the show. Special thanks to Scott Holmes Music for providing us the intro song, We Are One. RV Out West can be found on Instagram and Facebook, where you can interact with us and follow along on our RV adventures around the Pacific Northwest. So get out there, explore, and go see what's beyond the horizon.